How's everybody doing in here? Oh man, Shawn, how you been, man?
Very blessed given all the madness, that's going on. Very fortunate, being able to pivot and work from home and, the family's safe and the kids can, do schooling online and all that kind of stuff. In an environment where so many people don't have those choices, right? And those options. So,
Right, right. That's good, man. Well, it's good to have you, man. It's good to have this conversation. When COVID first started, we definitely had a conversation. I don't even remember what the title was, but it was something similar to the economic status of African American people, and I'm excited to for us to have this conversation now that the elections are over
yep,
and everybody can, like we like to say, the hype is over. Now it's time to get to work.
yep.
So before we kick it officially off, I just want to say welcome to everyone. Good evening, Carmelita, Tim, Jack. Good. Just saying hello, everybody. Feel free to type in on the chat. Um, you know, let us know how you feeling, everybody. I appreciate everybody for coming out on your evening. Um, thank you for Alan, man. Good evening, man. Looks like we got a new addition to the team, Shawn.
That's
You
right.
know, tell the world about this great Sphinxman, man. Tell the world about him, Shawn.
Yeah, so Alan Leroy just joined the Gentleman's Factory as the chief operating officer. We go back all the way to undergrad. We are chapter brothers, from U Sigma, which is seated at the University of Rochester and RIT, and Hobart William Smith. He's just an amazing brother. I think that you guys are extraordinarily fortunate to have him as a member of the leadership team. The expertise when it comes to technology, when it comes to forward thinking, when it comes to being able to utilize technology for incredibly transformative
Right,
reasons, right? His international experience, his corporate experience at tier one, corporations all over. So you got an amazing talent and intellect that's joining the team, and
right,
just a real good brother. You know what I mean?
right, right.
Like a real good brother in all the different facets of being a brother. So this is it's fantastic.
Well, Jeff is in a lot of trouble, man, because he's gonna have two alphas, one to his left and one to his right, right? And he's gonna have one not too far away,
That's
right
right.
there, not too far away. So first the first, never the last. So I look forward to it. I look forward to working with Alan and seeing how we could take this to the next level. So, man, people saying I should do a D9 roll call. Come on, like come on, I got a lot of GDIs too. I don't want people to feel left out. I don't want people to feel left out. Curtis, man, come on. Oh, I got my Neos in here. David Zuber, man, good to see you, man. I got a lot of people. Dwayne, Kojo said Mu Sigma, great chapter. Nice. New VP, let's go. Oh man, I got Blue Fi. Here we go. The Blues. The Blues want some love too, man. It's all good. It's all good. So yeah, so you know what? Let's jump in because what people don't understand is that Sam and Shawn, right? We talk about this like all day. Our wives, right, who are Dutchess probably hate us. They probably hate me, you know what I mean? Because we can spend all day talking about this topic, and I like to tell my friends, like, what else should I be talking about? There's nothing else to talk about, right? If you're not talking about Black economics in every facet of your life, then you're not focused on the reality and you're not focused on upward mobility. So I love talking about this. I love reading about this. I love identifying opportunities so that we can create economic opportunities for our people.
Hmm.
And so many different people talked about, oh man, we got Kappas in here. James Garrett, all right, man, Kappas in the house. All right, we got Kappas in here too. So many people were excited about Joe Biden winning.
Yep.
And it was, historic. We have the first female, and let me say it correctly. I don't want Brother Minister to beat me up. The first female vice president-elect in the United States history, who happens to be a Black woman and an Indian descent and Caribbean descent. And I think that's huge. I think that's historic. But one of the things that we talk about a lot, Shawn, is tagging, right? High fives, being in the room, giving each other high fives, but forgetting about the importance of our future.
Yep.
And I would like to, I'd like to first and foremost get a rundown real quick on, what does it mean, right? Tonight's title is "What is Inside of Joe Biden's Plan for Black America?" So I just want to solidify that for everyone. That's what we're going to be talking about. That's what this topic is about. We're going to break down the plan. We're going to talk about it from a PhD perspective. And I'm going to hand it to you, Shawn, so that you can educate us all on what PhD stands for, the book, right? Why you came up with PhD, and then we'll go dive right into the plan. So I just wanted to qualify the conversation. I wanted to remind everybody what we're going to be talking, what it is we're actually going to be talking about today. Feel free, everyone, to communicate on the chat. I want this to be an interactive conversation. Feel free to ask questions. As we're speaking, we'll get to the questions. But this is an opportunity for Black people to have a conversation about Black economics. And I want to preface this whole conversation by saying that this is what this is about. And Shawn Rochester, who I call one of the top Black economists that I know, right? Whether Shawn, knows it or not, I put him on that pedestal because the things that he's doing in our community and the way he's been able to quantify Black issues, it's second to none. I've never seen it done that way. So I'm excited about that, and that's what this conversation is all about. So please feel free, everyone. Thank you for joining. Please feel free to be interactive. Write questions down on the chat, but we're getting the show on the road. So, Shawn, tell us about PhD. What does that stand for? How did you come up with that? And then we're going to pivot directly into the Biden plan for Black America.
Excellent. So, thanks for that, Sam. First, let me say, thank you to the Gentleman's Factory, right? To you, to Jeff, to the leadership team for really kind of turning things around quickly and providing the space and a platform to have this conversation and to really engage in our future, right? From an economic standpoint. We're going to dive into kind of what's in this plan. I'm going to frame things out a bit so we can know how to look at it and think through it. There's a lot to the plan, right? We have a short period of time this evening. We won't be able to get through all the facets of it. We'll certainly focus on the economics and the education pieces, which is really where all the bulk of the investment is, and then think deeply about what is the applicability of it to the situation that we're in. So as you guys may know, in addition to being a number of things, I also wrote a book called The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America. And in that book, I quantified the financial costs of discrimination against Black people, both in the present context now in markets that are really critical to wealth accumulation, whether it's housing, automotive, capital raising for businesses, high-end careers, so on and so forth, as well as going back from the time of slavery and kind of quantifying discriminatory practices and institutions that we may or may not be aware of, and looking at it from a financial context and what is research from the finest universities in the country saying that is. And it's so we can move beyond these emotional qualitative conversations. If we have a qualitative conversation, we can all agree to disagree, right? But when we boil it down to the numbers and the substance, and we're talking about the credibility and the rigor of the PhDs and the other researchers that went in to
Right.
calculating these things, it's more concrete, right? And it tends to have a far more transformative, impactful benefit. So. Right. So I lay out those things in a book, and I advocate and introduce and advocate an economic framework that I call PhD, which stands for Purchase, Hire, and Deposit, in ways that create jobs, create and expand business, and provide capital in the Black community. The reason that's so important is because we have some massive gaps in our community. Pre-COVID, we're missing about 6 million jobs across the broader Black community. We're missing about 1.4 million businesses. Right. With employees. We got 2.56 million Black businesses, but only 4%, about 109,000 or so, have employees. The other 96% have no employees, whatsoever. That 4% generates about 70% of the revenue. It's about 1 million people, close to 100 billion in revenue. It's critical. We're missing 1.4 million of those. And then on top of that, you got the massive wealth gap. Right. Which is in the many trillions of dollars, and those gaps are what's driving about 99% of all the socioeconomic problems that we're dealing with. Right. So, what PhD stands for is Purchase, Hire, and Deposit. Right. Ways that create jobs, create and expand business, and provide capital in the Black community. It's organizing your actions and the allocation of your capital and your resources in ways that are stimulative of job creation, business development, and capital availability and affordability in the Black community specifically, right?
Wow.
So you got to have a PhD framework. So the P is your consumer spend. How do you allocate your resources, right? And it's also from a government, corporate, institutional perspective, it's their supply chain. To what extent are they doing business, right, with Black enterprise? The P is, are we properly, the H is, are we properly represented on payrolls, right? In the hiring process at all meaningful levels. And then the D is deposits, which is how are we using our balance sheets, either as individuals or corporations, institutions, governments, to capitalize institutions like Black banks, CDFIs, credit unions, so on and so forth, that are providing liquidity in our community, right? The things that we do, policies, plans, programs, whatever, have got to be stimulative for job creation, business development, and capital availability and affordability. And that's the lens through which we should look at things. It gets you into concrete elements of economic advancement, and it gets you away from symbolism, right? So when it comes to this plan or anybody else's plan or ideas or whatnot, the idea is look at it from a PhD framework, and let's see if it's stimulative to the things that we just talked about. So now we have a framing, right? And now we're equipped to use that frame to start thinking about the plans that have been put in place. Now you're correct that we just had, turbulent 4 years to which is not even coming close to describing things. You got this massive, historic, election, but the real work starts the day afterwards. Right.
That's right.
This is not the time to go back home and to pat yourself on the back and say that we did it and kind of move forward. Right. Now is the time to see, if they put plans in place to be able to attract your votes and your support. Let's look at what's in those plans. Right. You can't hold somebody accountable if you don't know what they need to be held accountable to. Right. The second thing is let's juxtapose their ideas about what we need with our understanding, right, of what we need, and see how these things, line up, right? And then we can kind of take it from there, and then we can kind of dive in and kind of start talking about this thing. So
okay, perfect. Thank you for the framework. That was very good. I'm putting some definitions in the chat so people can understand what some of the acronyms mean, so that everyone's on the same page. So I put the PhD here, and I want to show everyone that we're always going back to PhD, right? So me and Shawn are gonna try our best not to be professors tonight, right? But and have the conversation and be much more conversational. But I still want to definitely make sure everyone has the definitions and understands what these acronyms mean. So in the spirit of having the conversation, I'm gonna be a little bit unconventional with some of the questions, right? Because I know I got some Black folk in here. Even though I just seen in the chat, we have a brother who said, Brother Kevin Stark, I'm neither Black nor living in the US. I'm an Australian with a serious interest in global unity, which means needing to understand the perspective of others. I have been following Shawn Rochester and have just finished reading The Black Tax. Great education. Wonderful. So that's great. So we have a very diverse group
Thank
of
you.
folks who are here today, and I think that's very good because now we can really talk about how the plan is going to, one, impact black black Americans, but two, how black others, right, people who are not African American, are also being impacted by a plan that's for black Americans.
Right.
Right? So we'll definitely talk about that. But let's jump in, right? My first question before we even go into the plan to you, Shawn, is, because I know I got some black folk in here. My
Yep.
first question is, why do we need a plan for black America? Why do we need a plan? Right? Because I've never heard a plan for black America. 4 years ago, I didn't hear about a plan. 8 years ago, I didn't hear about a plan. Uh-oh, am I getting myself in trouble here? 12 years ago, I didn't hear about a plan either. And we all know,
Yeah.
right? If anything, that's when we would have heard about a plan. But I didn't hear about a plan 8 years ago. I didn't hear about a plan 12 years ago. So I want to know, Shawn, why do we need a plan?
I think my best take on it is they needed to secure the black
Mm,
vote. Like
mm,
the black vote, particularly as it pertains to Democrats, is
right,
extremely high. I believe
right,
over the last 60 years, you've had 90%, participation rate in terms of, siding with the Democrats.
right.
It's a level of excellence and consistency that
Mm,
is unparalleled. It's never been seen before. In the past, that was much more expected and taken for granted. I think
right,
you've got a lot of young people with energy talking about, what's in it for
right,
Black people. They're not happy with what they've seen, and I think that they're in all their rights to be unhappy.
right,
And candidates this year, they put up plans, right? If nothing else, to be able to say, I have a plan, right?
right.
So, and once one person starts moving in the direction to court you, other people have to match it, right? It's
That's right.
part of the actual, negotiation process. When you have that high level of participation, when it's 90%, right? If Black people showed up 80%, that differential would kill Democrats, right? So it was really important for them to put, a plan in place, and most of the candidates did. Bloomberg had a plan. Buttigieg had a plan. I think, Warren had a plan. Sanders had a plan. Lots of people had, plans. Whether or not they were advertised and read is a whole nother matter,
Something
right?
else.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So no, that's important, man. And I think the one of the things that we're trying to drive the point is that black people are in a position of are in a much higher position of power now than before, because we've never heard about a black plan before, even when we had a black president, right? So even in those elections, there were conversations about helping black people, but there's never been a plan. So I'm very happy that you were able to explain the importance of having a plan. And some people wrote in the chat that if you don't have a plan, then you're not going anywhere. Shout out to the Reds. I see we have a Red that said good evening. Question number 2: Does having a plan mean that you're done from there? Is having a plan enough,
No.
or do you actually have to do the things that you're saying you're going to do in the plan?
Yeah. First, your plan is your means and mode of how you're going to go about tactically and strategically accomplishing a particular goal, right?
Mm,
So the real issue is, what is the goal that you're trying to accomplish?
right,
Right? And then you measure the efficacy of the plan, relative to that. So we got to start with, are we all trying to go in the same direction? Because very often people have different objectives, right?
right.
So the plans are going to mean different things to different people. And then how well is that plan designed? How well is that
Mm,
plan mitigating, right, for how the environment is going to react to that plan? And then, is it properly capitalized in terms of the right financial resources to execute it? Is it
mm,
properly, funded in terms of the right human resources to execute it?
right,
It's a complicated environment, political environment, to get things done. So all that
right.
has to be thought through and kind of baked into it.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in, Shawn. First
Cool.
bullet point in the Joe Biden plan for America: advance the economic mobility of African Americans and close the racial wealth and income gaps. Right?
Hmm.
Approximately 4% of small business owners are African American, even though African Americans make up approximately 13% of the population. To build wealth in African American communities, we must invest in the success of African American businesses and entrepreneurs. So, for the first step on the plan is ensuring equal access to credit and capital. You mentioned this earlier and you talk about it in your book. Joe Biden is saying that he wants to ensure equal access to capital. He wants to ensure equal access to capital and credit.
Hmm.
What does that mean for us?
I mean, it means directionally he's going in the right direction, right? So, PhD is purchase, hire, and deposit. Deposits is representative of capital. It needs to be available and affordable, right? And
Right.
there's several elements to his plan, and the first element to his plan, and the largest element, is actually from an economic perspective. So that
Okay.
you're starting off in a good direction, right?
Right.
With economics, right? And obviously with capital availability. The issue has to be now, all these plans, everything has to be specific. Is this
Okay.
driving actions and improvement in the Black community specifically, right?
Right.
It has to be economic, right? And then of course it has to be scalable at the scale to actually affect change. So we want to look at things through that frame, right? So it's a very long plan, right, that he's kind of put in place. So if we can start talking about some of the bullet points, like the line items under this thing, right? Like how
Right.
is he envisioning going about doing this, right?
Right.
So what he's doing is really trying to either you know increase funding for existing programs, right?
Right.
Or put programs back in place that may have been sunset or kind of reduced funding before. So one of the things that he talks about is really doubling the funding for state small business credit and initiative, right?
Okay.
And he makes this point that basically for every billion that they put into it, they can expect $10 billion worth of lending. So there's a 10x multiplier on this.
Right.
They put $1 billion in it before. He's looking to bring that number up to $3 billion. With a 10x multiplier on that, he's expecting like $30 billion, right, worth of lending that is driven by that, right, the state small business credit initiative. If I look at that from a PhD perspective, right, if I say, to what extent is that creating jobs, business, and capital in the Black community specifically, that becomes a question, right? If we just look at what they had done previously with the initial $1 billion that was put in, and then the $10 billion that was of incremental lending that happened, how much of that went to Black enterprise? Right now, it doesn't say here, because are we multiplying something that's not very effective for us? Again, you got to be specific. It could be winning incredibly well with other people, and God bless them. You know what I mean? There's no negative energy there, but is it flowing in ways that are having a meaningful impact for Black enterprise, right, and for the Black business infrastructure? And that's not really addressed here, right? Because this is focused on small business.
Okay.
Right. And most Black businesses are small business by definition. They're actually
by definition,
micro,
right.
So the idea is that this should have significant impact, but there's really no data that's saying what the impact has been up to this point. So what you're doing is you're doubling something that we don't know, like how much jobs and business is this providing. So that's to me a big question mark, right? Will it have an impact? I assume so. To what extent will it have an impact on Black enterprise? I don't see. So because they haven't said. And how do you keep people accountable when it comes there, right? Again, we're always receptive and open to information. You know what I mean?
Right.
The other part of it is talks about this new markets tax credit. And focusing on making this thing permanent, and also doubling the amount of capital that they've been putting into community development financial institutions, right? Which are these things that call CDFIs, right? So double the amount of investment in CDFIs, and let's make this kind of new market tax credit permanent. Again, whenever you're putting capital into something that has the potential to affect Black people, that's a great thing. The question becomes, to what extent is it having impact, right? So I think there are hundreds, right, of CDFI spread all over the country.
Right.
Very few of those are run by Black people.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So
you're getting heavy. You're going deep, Shawn.
Yeah,
So wait a minute. If the CDFIs are not run by Black people, how can the CDFIs understand Black people issues?
The way that I would measure that is, what is the amount of lending that's happening in Black communities and with Black enterprise and with Black members of that community, and what is the impact of it, right? Because if you can demonstrate that, then to me you're showing a great understanding, right? And I'm loving it, and I'm riding with you all day, every day. The question is, can you show that to me? Because I know your intentions are good. I don't question that at all. But what I need to line up is outcomes with intentions, right? So I need to see, like, what of these CDFIs, what do their lending practices look like? And to what does it look like within Black communities in particular? Because he's doubling the funding, which I think is a great thing. People are going to benefit and do well. I'm interested in are people going to benefit and do well? Or are you just scaling something that hasn't been, particularly, effective, right? When I say effective, I mean, is it creating jobs? Is it creating or expanding business? Is it providing capital in affordable, right, and available way within the Black community? I would love to see information on that, so I know what we're scaling. Let me tell you why it's important to be specific, right? And while you see me going back to this, if you look at spending that is going to the minority, diverse, and inclusive group, right? Businesses that are that have employees, they have that scale, that are like women, that are Asian, that are, Latino, that are Black, that kind of category. Only about 4% of all that is going to Black enterprise.
Wait, break that down for everybody, right? Because when you hear it, like you just said, people hear minority and women businesses, they're thinking, oh my God, Black.
No.
Break this down.
No. So one of the things I talk about and I try to explain at every level in every company that I speak to, right, is minority, diverse, inclusive does not mean Black, right? Those are generally euphemisms of not white male. They're incredibly general. They're speaking to 90% of people on planet Earth. You have a generalized solution for a very specific problem, right? Now, if you say to yourself, like, let's invest in our Latino brothers and sisters, I'm all in, man. Let's do it, right? You know what I mean? If you look at those businesses with employees, they generate about $380 billion a year. If you ask of those, how much is from Black businesses, it's 2%.
Oh man, this 2%. Shawn, you're not gonna do me with the 2% all night, man.
We can't avoid the 2%. It's 2%. By the way, if you do the same thing with women-owned businesses, right? Like, let's invest more in them, right? And I'm all in every day, all day. Let's do it, right? Women-owned businesses with employees generate about $1.2 trillion a year. Now, if we say, okay, well, how much of that is from Black businesses, Black women, it's 2%. That means it's not until the $99 that a sister is going to see any benefit from that program, right? That's what happens when you do these generalized solutions. And if you look at it from our Asian brothers and sisters, they generate about $628 billion a year. And by definition, there's no Black people there. So if you add up the whole pie of diverse and minority, only 4% is Black. So you fill in a swimming pool to get a glass of water. Man. You know what I'm saying? So what I need to see from these programs is, how is this actually I know it's getting to minorities for sure. Right. But what I need to understand is, how is it getting to Black people? And then I'm going to give you another statistic that's important to think about, right? Almost 90% of the revenue from women is to white women.
Whoa, Shawn, hold on.
Right?
Hold on, man. Hold on. Because when I think of women, I'm thinking about Black women. You're telling me it's not Black women.
When unless you're specific, you're talking about a whole group. And almost 90% of the revenue from the whole group is from white women. Right? Something like 84% of the revenue from like the Hispanic Latino business is from people who self-identify as white. That whole group, 60% of that revenue is going to white folks. You know what I'm saying? So they're benefiting from it, just numerically. It ain't my opinion or nothing. You can pull the numbers,
This
you
is
can look at
data.
all this stuff.
Absolutely.
These are just the stats and the data, right? Now, you could do all that. Like you could self-deal, you could put all the money in your hands. That's fine. I want to know what are you doing for Black enterprise, right? And 4% of just the minority portion, an inclusive portion, is not sufficient. So when you're doubling up on these programs,
right,
is that yielding 4% for Black enterprise? Because nobody's kind of reporting the numbers, right? So like if you, for example, if you look at the next point, they said, look, we're going to improve and expand small business administration programs that most effectively support, African American owned businesses. I like that. It's specific, right? We're gonna do that. The backdrop is only 1.6% of SBA lending go to Black enterprise. So
1.6. Now you're talking under 2%, Shawn.
It's under 2%. Yeah. So when you double, triple that, again,
you're talking about
another swimming pool.
You're talking about 4 to 6%. Triple that 1 point. You're not even at 6%.
Right. So that's what I need to understand, because the goals here aren't very specific. Like, I'm going to create X number of Black enterprises. I'm going to make sure X amount of capital gets to Black enterprises. I'm going to make sure that this many more new home buyers are within the Black community, so on and so forth. You don't have those type of specific goals. You have programs that are helpful to large numbers of people that should also be helpful to Black people. But I need some specificity. And actually, we need some specificity, because our votes were specific. Were they not?
That's right.
Did they not ask us to vote specifically for me? That's what he said.
That's
he didn't
right.
say vote for a candidate who is interested. He said vote for me.
For me.
And I'm like, all right, we hear you. So I need to see specifically. You can't provide resources in the general direction of us, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Right. You know what I mean? So how are you going to get that 1.6 number to 4, to 6, to 8, to 13%? Right? Where's the plan for that? That plan isn't there. They are going to make that organization administration better. They are going to better capitalize it. They are going to invest in it. They are going to do some things that they say will specifically help Black people. But you got the law of small numbers. The base is so incredibly small that doubling, tripling things don't really matter a whole lot, right? So what's the specific plan there, right? And again, the plan is long. It's, there's quite a bit of stuff in there. I encourage everybody, when you get a chance, you know what I mean, read through it for yourself, right? Kind of carve out the time. It'll be worth it, right? He talks about, increasing the opportunity for Black-owned businesses. Again, I like that word, specific, right? To obtain or participate in federal contracts. This is really important. And I like this headline and this aspect of it, right? They make they share some information. They said in the aftermath of 2008, 2009 financial crisis, well over, I think what they're saying is from then till now, $100 billion of prime contracts were awarded to minority-owned small business. See the word that they use?
Oh boy, we back to minority. So we started with African American. We started with Black actually, and now
you're telling me what we did for minorities. By the way, how much of that $100 billion went to Black enterprise? I know a lot of Black business owners. I know a lot of brilliant, amazing Black talent. Right? We do not lack brilliance and ideas and capability. Capital, absolutely. Networks, absolutely. Coaching, absolutely. Right? So how much of that 100 billion went to Black owned business? I don't know, and they don't say, but 100 billion of it went to minorities. Well, we just said that on average 4% is going to Black enterprise. You know what I mean?
So let me break this down. So that means 96%, right, is not going to Black people. I want to make it clear for everyone that's on here, right? Because it's one thing to say 4%. It's another thing to say 96%. I don't think people are hearing or articulating the gap.
Yep.
So like sometimes it even goes over my head when I hear 4%, because I might be thinking 4% out of 10%, right? I might be
Or
thinking 4% out of 20%, right? Or 20. We're talking about 4% out of 100%.
yeah. I mean, if the minority, diverse, inclusive, right, and women-owned businesses are put into that category, right? You add it all up, it's four. I mean, it's just math, right? It's 4%. That's the number, right? Again, there's the gap between intentionality, people want to do the right thing, and actual outcomes. And I'm not taking a position on what people's intentions are. I'm sure it's good. I'm indifferent. I don't really particularly care. What I'm interested in is what is the outcome in terms of jobs, business, capital, right, in the Black community, organized in ways that lead to better health and educational outcomes. You
Right.
cannot have the thriving communities that we all want and desire and deserve built on a massive gap of jobs, business, and capital. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world, and it cannot exist within a capitalist society. Those gaps have to be closed. Period. End of story. And these programs have to be designed to do that. The good thing is, not only is it extraordinarily beneficial to individual business owners and their families and their communities, but it's actually an enormous win for the whole country, right? And for everyone else, because Black businesses are extraordinarily diverse, right? In terms of employees and who they do business with and so on and so forth, right? And the laws of economics just make it very clear that discrimination is bad for capital. So, you know, again, this is why specificity is so, you know, important, right? In terms of when we're evaluating these things, how is this actually getting here? Because if you don't have that, how are they going to execute to it? What they're going to do is they're going to say, well, we're going to do our level best to drive this into to minorities, right? Like we can take a real live example. New York City, let me give you, New York State is a Democratic state, right?
Right.
A huge landslide victory for Biden, right?
Right.
Did not vote for Trump, even though that's his home state and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Huge. You can't afford to miss those electoral votes. New York City has amazingly accomplished diversity goals for procurement, MWBE type programs, right? They have set high objectives, and they have been steadily tracking and meeting those objectives.
Right.
You know what numbers they don't talk about?
Oh boy.
How much is going to Black enterprise? You know what those numbers are? It's like 1%. You know what it's been consistently? 1% for decades. You know where the biggest Black business ecosystem is? It ain't Atlanta. It's in New York State, right? In a Democratic state, where they're getting 1% of billions and billions on an annual basis, right? What I'm saying is that needs to shift. If there was any place, right, where you could have this wonderful ecosystem of extraordinary development within the Black ecosystem, it certainly should be here, and it should be leading the country. We got to focus on the economics of things, and we got to focus on the outcomes. Is it creating jobs, business, and providing capital in our community?
Shawn, wait a minute, man. You just said that 1% of procurement is going to Black people in New York City, which is New York State rather, which is a Democratic state, which all of the electoral votes went to Joe Biden, but 1%, right? So let's say $1 billion, right? I want to quantify this. Let's say $1 billion was being allocated to the Black. I'm sorry, $1 billion is being allocated to all business owners, right? All vendors in the state of New York, $1 billion. Are you saying to me that 1% of $1 billion went to Black people, Shawn?
Yes. Again, they're minority goals. And by the way, you know what the average procurement level is for corporations with Black enterprise? It's 2%.
Oh my God, here we go.
Everywhere.
The 2% again.
You know what I mean? Everywhere. Right? So this is more normal than people understand. It's part of the reason why we have these gaps. And what we need people to understand is if you are doing more business with Black enterprise, you can create 10, 15,000 jobs by doing that. That affects
Right.
families and communities and churches and philanthropies and nonprofits. And it's just a wonderful and amazing, if the school systems, tax rate, fire and safety, it affects everything once you have that capital, right? That's
Right.
flowing into the community. It's extremely important. And that's what we need. We need to give ourselves that understanding and the nomenclature so we can ask for it from whoever it is that we're talking to. This is part of the expectation. And so that people understand that this is what you need. If you're not
Right.
asking for it and you're not having a problem with it, why should they adjust?
Right. Well, so let me be devil's advocate a little bit, Shawn, because you're killing me tonight,
Please.
right? Let me be. So I'm Joe Biden team. We coming in. We here to help Black people. We're coming in.
Yep.
We're bringing a Black administration. We're
Yep.
changing it. We put out a plan. In our plan, it says, we're going to expand access to high quality education and tackle racial inequity in our education system. Right.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make far-reaching investments, right, into the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
We're investing, another $10 billion into lending, small business lending into the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this plan that's 400 pages long. Nobody has time to read it because, we're too busy doing God knows what, right?
Yep.
But everyone's happy, everyone's excited. But I actually did those things. I sent the money over to Shawn. I sent it to Shawn. Right? I sent it. I did it. Look, I sent $10 billion over to Shawn. I sent it over to him. What else do you want from me? I sent it to the Rochester National Bank. I sent the 10 billion over there. I did all that. I did my part. Is that enough?
No, it's not enough. Like, you mentioned education, right? Because that's one of their planks. It's the second one that they go to. We need to get to that. And it's incredibly important, as we all know. There's no new news there, right? What would I do? My first order of business would be, we're missing 352,000 Black teachers across the K through 12 system in America. Get them hired.
Wow.
Get
Wait.
hired.
Let's okay, hold on. Because what do you mean we're missing Black teachers?
So proportional to the number of students, right? So 18% of the students in the K through 12 system are Black students, right? But only 7% of the teachers are Black. 5 of that 7 are women. 2 of that 7 are men, which is why most people will tell you through their K through 12 experience, maybe they get 1 or 2 tops, right? Black teachers within there. Now, there's an economic reason why this is critical, because the average teacher salary and benefits is about $50,000 a year. So that means because those teachers are not present, the Black community, through those people, is losing $20 billion a year in salary and benefits every day, all day. This year, next year, last year, for the foreseeable future. That's a diversion of $20 billion a year, right? That needs to be addressed. The second piece that you need to understand is that non-Black teachers tend to have 40% lower expectations for Black students. And students rise or fall to the expectation set to them. The level of anti-Black bias, right? And the trauma that's often, on students is so significant. If you whisper in a child's ear that they're Black before they take a test, research says they're going to score lower on that test. You know what I mean? We need teachers, that reflect us. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there's a whole history behind why is there such a dearth, right? And I talk about that in the book. But if you want a policy standpoint, we're missing those teachers. By the way, if you have just the presence of 2 Black teachers in your K through 12 experience, you're like 34% more likely to graduate from university. Just 2 out of scores. Right? So like, get that done. while you're figuring out curriculum and how you feel about all this other ideological stuff, I need them hired, right? I need them placed. The second aspect of it is you've got a $23 billion differential between what white students are receiving and what black students are receiving in the same educational system on net across the country. Now you can say, well, why is that? And the reason is older, more senior tenured teachers make more, substantially more. They tend to want to work in communities that have lower populations of black students. The most of the expense is salary. So most of the salary is going to the white areas, predominantly white areas. And most of the least experience and the lower paid teachers are going to the predominantly black areas. And the most critical thing that you get is human capital development, right? It's the education and development of our young people. We have these kind of, irrational things that are playing out. So that's something that I would do. Is economic and it's transformative. You should get that done. You know what I mean? That's something that people should be, super, excited about, right? Focus on that, get that done. Then there's other things that we can work on. Like, we can kind of jump around. He does have a plan where the idea is to put, billions of dollars of incentives to create and stimulate low affordable housing. Right?
Yes.
And I think that's a great thing. I think that's a wonderful thing. You know what I'm saying? So kudos to him and his team and whoever kind of came up with that stuff. That's wonderful. If you have a PhD mindset, what you do is you ask the question, who is building those houses?
Here we go.
Because we think about black folks from a consumer standpoint, right? Once the house is built, they're making
then we show up.
For you to consume.
Then we show up. Now it's time for us to come in.
We need a better mix. Exactly. We need a better mix of producers, right? And consumers. Who's building the houses? Because what I want to do is I want to see black architects and designers and contractors, right? And plumbers and roofers and electricians. So when you're putting in $100 billion to create this incentive, you are having a multiplier aspect on black enterprise. But who's thinking about that? Not a soul. The usual suspect, where there's almost no black representation, are going to be incented to come in and build stuff to sell to us at more affordable prices. By the way, they're not going to give the houses away. So they're going to need realtors involved in those transactions. Where the black realtors at?
No.
You can't not have insurance on these brand new homes where the black brokers and insurance at, right? You can have a multiplier effect on the spend, but you only get that if you got a PhD mindset. Otherwise, you'll be lucky if you get $1 as opposed to the 10 that you should get out of that transaction.
So Shawn, if I am a non-black vendor and I hear that they're going to spend $100 million in affordable housing, right? And I have the capital because I'm not black, I'm white, and I had a capital injection from my dad or my grandfather. Right? Because they were able to carry their wealth through, through real estate.
You have over 100 times more liquid capital than the average black family, period. Yes, you're much more likely to be in that well-capitalized position, for sure. Yes.
So I'm white. I hear that Joe Biden is going to spend $100 million on affordable housing. So I have a construction company, right? And now that I have a construction company, I want to have a architectural firm as well. Because in 6 weeks I can hire people to be architects, or I can acquire an architectural firm or partner with a larger architectural firm and bring them on the deal as well.
Yep.
So I'm doing the construction. I'm the architecture, I'm the architect rather, to create the plan, and then I'm bringing the construction worker in. I'm doing the excavation, right? I'm also doing the electrical. So out of this $100 million that's going into this house, I've already sucked 20, 30, 40% of it.
Likely. Now, that's likely. I mean, you're just better capitalized. You got better relationships. You got a history, a track record. You've been doing this stuff for a long time. So when you put up your bid, it's more likely that you're going to be able to get it, right? There's two different ways here. When you structure a plan, you're already thinking about how you get more Black enterprise involved in it, right? What you're talking about is the plan's out and people are bidding, right? And if this guy wins, then what happens is he can just do PhD, which is he or she, right, can hire the Black, architect or designers, or they're going to sub out all the work. They're not going to do all the stuff themselves. They have choice, right? They get to choose who's in their supply chain. People are just asking for opportunities to deploy the skills that they've developed. You know what I mean? So if that individual has a PhD mindset, they can do a tremendous amount of good, right? But they have to have it also. You know what I mean? And who's having those conversations? Why? It's stimulative to job creation, business development, right? If you don't like the social aspects and the transfer payments and all the kind of thing, nobody wants that, right? People want to be able to cover their costs today, have something left over for the future, live in dignity, have resources, and the like. Like, no one's chosen to live within lack, right? That's been created, by design. If you want to change that, the private sector can have a huge impact on doing that. That's a private sector individual that you're talking about, right? The public sector should be helping to facilitate that and also to capitalize it, as well.
So a few things you said here that I think is crucial and important. So if we're for the state of New York, we're at a 1% acquisition of contracts, government contracts. There's going to now the Joe Biden plan is telling us, right? This is the cash infusion, right, and the capital infusion that's going to be invested into the Black community, which is in the plan that I put in the chat for everyone to see. But based on what you just said, Shawn, there are other communities who are creating strategic plans around this funding that is being appropriated for Black people.
Yeah, I think they're just responding to it, right? The plans are going to be incentives to help create more affordable housing units in this example, right? Which is a good thing, right, for the community. And if you are a contractor, if you are, you have some regional, national prowess, you can do a good thing and you can make money while you're doing it. And you could be white woman, you could be Asian, you could be Latino, Middle Eastern, or you could be whatever and be like, hey, this is great. They're providing an incentive. I can help people. You know what I'm saying? And the like. You don't understand the history of the program. You don't understand where this program came from. Right? This program was inside the Black plan. Remember, this ain't the plan for America. I'm not telling you not to do all this stuff. I want everybody to win. This is the Black plan. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I'm like, in the Black plan, right, the resources should be going to Black enterprise and Black communities and Black people. And it should be a well-defined plan. History says, and the data is very clear on it, that it hasn't been. We're at 2% of U.S. wealth, and we're at 2% of almost everything that's really meaningful, right, in terms of our participation rates. So those things haven't been working. I think we need to be clear so people understand that they're benefiting from things that were allocated or coming from someone else, so they don't accrue it to themselves and then look at Black people and say, why can't you just work harder like me, right? So you know what I mean? This is really important. Now, there's another aspect of the plan that I want to kind of jump ahead to. There's just so much in here. I encourage everybody to read it, come up with your own opinion, your own thoughts.
I added the plan on the chat, ladies. And I think I added the plan on the chat, and a few other folks added it as well. Dennis, shout out to Dennis, man. Dennis added the plan to the chat as well, so you guys can go and read it. But let's jump in, Shawn.
Yeah. So I wanted to jump over to we can come back to this, but I also want to jump over to the education plan. You know what I mean? Because they're really serious about it, right? Like, they know that you cannot advance the people unless you are educating them, right? So that they are being upskilled, right? And we have a massive problem when it comes to education in general, and we certainly have a problem when it comes to Black people. So part of the plan is to put $70 billion, right, into HBCUs and MSIs.
Right. 1 second, Shawn, before you go, right? Because
Yeah.
you just, yeah. Ah, all right. Before you go, right, in that direction, you just mentioned so many different things that I'm going to assume, I'm making an assumption on behalf of our viewers and our members here that a lot of people on this chat did not know. There's a lot of this information. They didn't know about this. There's a lot of data that you mentioned that a lot of people weren't familiar with. Now, I feel like I went to some pretty good schools. I was blessed, right? That my parents invested for me to go into some pretty good schools. I had some Haitian parents and they beat me. Yes, I don't know if I can say that publicly to make sure that I do what I had to do so I do well. But I still didn't learn the information that you just shared, Shawn. I still didn't learn about the trades and investing in a business, and that the best way for me to impact my community, right, is to create an enterprise and to hire people and to circulate that dollar. I wasn't taught that in any level of the schooling. So I want you to talk about these investments, but I also want you to touch on the fact that people aren't being educated on how to create their own opportunities. And I'm speaking for myself. I don't want to speak. Some people on this chat may have gotten that education. They may have taken those classes. I teach introduction to entrepreneurship at a school now where I'm now teaching young people about I didn't take any entrepreneurship classes in undergraduate school. So I want you to also mention the lack of education in Black economics for Black people as we start this conversation on the investment in HBCUs.
So let me start off by saying, like, the best definition that I've ever heard of what education is was by a lady by the name of Jane Elliott. And she said that education is the process by which you are led out of ignorance. Right. Oof. And what I think is our educational system, primary, secondary, and tertiary, is a system that instructs people. And I think there's a difference between instruction and education. Right. Because we're not educated on the role that Black people played in this country, right, other than at an extremely superficial level. We're not educated on the cost of the labor extracted from those millions of people were, and how it was reinvested to create, institutions, and how you could not separate Black people from America. There's no America. It's not possible in any way, shape, or form. 50% of all economic activity was tied to 4 million people in the South. You know what I mean? 80% of the global cotton market, 61% of U.S. exports. We're so ingrained into the country in terms of resources extracted and denied, and the numbers are astronomical. And it's all covered in the book, The Black Tax, The Cost of Being a Black in America, which I encourage everybody to get. It just puts us all, not just Black people, not just allies, it just puts us all in with the same fact set. It unpacks a lot of really passionate positions that people have by informing them about things that they did not know from institutions that they have great respect for, and very qualitative, quantitative, numerical ways, right? It's a starting point. I had to go create that, or I had to go compile it, right? It didn't exist, for me. The story was not told in this way. And this is why it resonates with CEOs and with, diplomats and with the regular person on the street. We all went to the same, we went to school districts with different resources, but the same curriculum. And this isn't in it.
Right. Right.
And I went to fancy schools too. I was very blessed to go to Chicago and University of Rochester, all that kind of stuff. You don't learn any of this there, right? I learned a ton of stuff in Chicago. I didn't learn any of this there, right?
Me neither.
So we need to know this information. Others need to know it so that we can have understanding and empathy when it comes to solving these problems. Right now, we don't have a ton of understanding. We don't have very much empathy, right? The idea is, that's accepted, is Black people are where they are because of decisions that they have made or not made. And if you fix you, we would be great. And what I want to do is show people that environment has everything to do with your outcomes, right? There's no shortage of hard work, but there is a shortage of environment that gives you a yield on that hard work. And others have monopolized that environment, right? So, you know, and it's, if you're an audiobook person, it's an audiobook. If you're an ebook person, it's an ebook. If you're like the physical book, it's on there. It's a quick read, it's a powerful read, but you need it, right? To be an effective part of the solution, to have the data to represent what you know to be right and true, right? What you feel in your bones, but may have difficulty, you know, substantiating with data. You know, I laid that out, right? You could be anywhere in the world and elegantly lay out, you know, why is all the stuff that's happening? Like, I'm surprised by nothing that's happening. Like, I'm a student of U.S. history. I'm not surprised by any of this. Like, I know where this is going, right?
Right.
So,
right.
So
that's I added the book into the chat. So anybody, if you have not read The Black Tax and the Cost of Being Black in America, you're missing out. But I do want to preface it by saying, after you read this book, you'll never be the same. I read this book in one day, and it's completely changed my mindset. It's completely changed how I operate, how I view business. It has even changed how my future plans in my life, my career trajectory, my choices. This book has done that. So I would like to encourage everyone to definitely. Marcus said he just purchased the book on Amazon. Thanks, Sam. Absolutely, Marcus. I'm happy that you picked it up. This book will definitely change your life. But I want to say something. I want to bring something back to you, Shawn, and this plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now that we're talking numbers, and I always tell my students this, people, when you're doing business, you have to articulate things in numbers.
Yep.
Joe Biden's plan mentioned how much, I forget, how much is going to be invested into HBCUs. Do you recall, Shawn?
$70 billion.
$70 billion are being invested.
HBCUs and MSIs.
Okay.
I'm gonna come back to that.
So if predominantly white institutions have endowments in the billions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
$70 billion is HBCUs over how long? Over how many years?
If I had to guess, I actually don't want to say it's in the plan.
But no. I'm just assuming. Let's say, right, because usually it's not like, all right, I'm writing a check for $70 billion, right? It's usually, we're going to invest $70 billion and that's it. No one ever asks, well, in how many years?
Right.
In what installment packages? Is it $70 billion over 4 years? Shawn? Is it over 16 years? Right?
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things, that's why I brought it up. Those are the kind of things that I want to talk about, because let's say you're investing $70 billion into HBCUs. I don't have in front of me the exact amount of HBCUs, but let's say for argument's sake, there's 101 HBCUs, Shawn.
Yeah.
Shawn, you just killed me, man. 101 HBCUs, you're investing $70 billion.
You're investing in HBCUs and MSIs.
Shawn, I'm scared of the MSIs.
All right.
I'm scared. I wanna pretend. So let's stick with the HBCUs for now. There's 101 HBCUs. So there's more HBCUs than the investment dollar amount. Yeah. If I understand correctly. So okay, we're investing $70 billion in 101 HBCUs. Let's say it's over 4 years, because how do we know that President Biden is going to get reelected in 4 years? Correct?
Yep.
So let's say we're dividing 70 in 4, right? So we have to divide it into 4 first, right? Because that's the first step, right? When you're doing business, you got to do the math. So 17.5 billion $17.5 billion to 101 institutions?
Mhm. Actually, to HBCUs and MSIs.
And but Harvard has a, what is it, 32, $40 billion endowment?
It was like 40 at some point in the past.
40, okay. Again, am I back at the 2%? Did I even make it to 2%? Shawn, did I make it to the 2% number here in this race? I didn't make 2%, did I? Am I at 1%? Let's say if I'm one HBCU.
Mm-hmm.
Did I make it to the 1%? Am I even in the 1% now? Because there's 101 of us and MSIs. It's only 17 billion this for, for this year. How do I plan to compete? How?
Yeah, so you probably not. I mean, there's 3,000 universities, so 1% would be top 30. You know what I mean? They're pretty well capitalized. But but I got to make a point of clarification here, right? Because so when I read through that thing and I saw 70 billion, I was like, all right, you on my street. I'm a big proponent advocate for massive investment into HBCUs, right? I'm a huge proponent. So when I saw that, I was like, all right, love it. You on my street. Let me hear what you got to say, right? Then I saw HBCUs and I saw MSIs.
We're losing you a little bit, Shawn. If you could just say that
hear?
one more time. We can hear now. Yeah, go ahead. Say
So
that again.
I saw an investment in HBCUs and MSIs. I'm a big fan and proponent of advocate of investing significantly, right?
Right.
In HBCUs, no question about it. So when I saw that money, I thought it was just fantastic. But then I said, what's the MSI? MSI is a minority serving institution, right? So it's an institution that has a pretty significant portion of Black people, people who are Asian, Native American, Polynesian, Latino, Hispanic, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, well, how many HBCUs are there? 101, right? That we talked about. How many MSIs are there? 700. See,
all right,
HBCU,
this is over. We're done. We're done, Shawn. We're done. We're done, Shawn.
And HBCU.
Shawn, we're done. Because I was saying 101. I was saying 101, right? If the 70 billion is larger than 101, right? You've just sliced the pie where there's not even enough for everyone. You just said that there's 700 MSIs, right?
Yeah,
so we're talking about 800 people.
HBCUs are MSIs.
Oh, okay.
So they one of
okay.
the 700, right?
Got you.
So my thought was like, oh wow, okay. So we're going to allocate 70 billion. Quick math says HBCUs are 14% of the MSIs. If you were to allocate it according to population, the number of them, that would seem like you would put 14% in the HBCUs. And I was like, that can't be right, because how could Black schools get 14% of the money in a Black plan? Right? So again, this is what happens when we're not specific. This is what happens when we use minority diverse language as a proxy for Black. And you have to be careful with this, because policy follows the language that you use, and the allocation of resources follows policy.
Ooh.
Right? You got to. I'm not saying these people shouldn't get money. I'm not saying that at all. I want you to be happy. Get all you can get. That's fine. But in the Black plan, how are you getting 80%, 86% of the resources in the Black plan? Right? That doesn't make any sense, right? You need to direct those resources to these, HBCUs, turn them into bleeding edge institutions. These are organizations that have had to make miracles happen out of massive levels of underfunding for decades and decades. That should come to an end. You know what I mean? Full infrastructure upgrade, all the resources that they need, right? And if you're starting with $70 billion, you can take a real swag at being able to do that in a significant way, right? But if you're allocating that over 700 different institutions in the Black plan, but now people believe that was accrued to Black people. It just doesn't make any sense, right? If I was looking at the plan for Asian Americans and I saw they were getting 14%, if it appeared that way, because I don't know exactly what these people are going to do, then I would be like, that's not right. Come on, man. You got to make sure that these people are fine in their own plan. That doesn't even make any sense, right? But this is the type of thing, if you're not careful and focused, this is the type of thing that we allow, right? When it comes to devising. Again, this is the Black plan. We're not reading it and it's surmising that it's the Black plan. It literally starts off with the Black plan.
This is Black Plan for America.
There you go.
Wow.
I think the simple answer is you raise these points. These guys are smart people. They're politicians, right? They're smart people. What they're going to do is say, oh, my language was inartful. I didn't really mean that. You misinterpreted what I said. It's actually going to be this. Fine. We don't have a problem. Then make it that. Right? But you got to raise the issue. Right? Otherwise, they're going to say, we did what we said we were going to do, which is that we were going to invest in HBCUs and MSIs, and we did. And it's a great thing, right? You have to be specific.
So now so I want to dive a little bit deeper. And then I want to jump into some questions from the audience, right? Because you and I could be here all night talking about this, right? So we've both been in rooms where decisions have been made.
Yep.
We've both sat on boards where we've made decisions for organizations and institutions where we had powerful voices and we were decision makers that impacted not just the physical structure of the organization, but also the appearance and the body of the organization. What do you think caused the MSI to slip into the language? Because we all understand that our vice president-elect is an alumnus of Howard University. So, and we also understand that there's a level of sophistication that comes with lobbying for dollars, on the federal level. I do recall Donald Trump saying that he's given the most money to HBCUs. One of the debates, he gave the most money to HBCUs than any other president in history.
Yeah.
Now that we understand the language, how do we as decision makers, as members of our community, as alumni of HBCUs, how do we go back to our networks and to our communities and not just present this information, but also take some actionable steps towards fixing the language so that we're not getting 14% in our own Black plan?
So I think we have to we need a little bit of context, right? So, you've heard me talk about, and I speak about in the book, there's very high levels of anti-Black bias in America, both conscious and unconscious. And whether you look at, research from Chicago, Stanford, Michigan, Associated Press, that puts it as, conscious, what you're doing bias at almost 50%, about 51%. That's 1 in 2 Americans in the voting electorate that have anti-Black bias. Conscious, they know exactly what they're doing. If you look at it from subconscious, it's about 56%. It's almost 6 in 10, right? Operating on a subconscious, level. If you look at the work Harvard has done with their online implicit association tests, they're seeing like 75% of the people taking it, and millions and millions and millions of people taking this stuff have anti-Black bias. Unconscious. Citigroup, in their last report about the $16 trillion cost of discrimination, said for the white people who took that test, and there's millions and millions of those, it's 85%. So that all that says is very high levels of anti-Black bias, both conscious and unconscious. And people have an aversion to the word Black. Like when you start bringing Black in the conversation, it's almost like you've racialized it. You brought offense into the room. And we need to kind of we need to dilute that negative energy, right? So we got to associate it with something else. It's got to be of color, right? It's got to be minority. It's got to be disadvantaged. It's got to be historical, something else, or this, that, and the other. It can't be Black.
Right.
By the way, you're rewarded if you use that diluted language, right? And you could be penalized if you use specific language. So we've been socialized to use it. You listen to everybody, people talking about black stuff, talking about of color, black persons executed on TV, right? And they're like, oh, of color. No, that's a specifically anti-black initiative, right? The fashion house that has the black face on it, talking about what you're doing to minorities. That's not a minority action. That is a specific vitriolic anti-black act, right? So that is where that kind of, let's change that word to something else that's more tolerable, right, for the group. But then policy will follow that nomenclature, and the allocation of resource will follow the policy. You know what I mean? And you wind up in this hyper dilutive thing because an issue happens with a black person, and we need to respond with programs that make the world better for minorities. And I think everybody should be, their concerns should be redressed. I want everybody to win, but not at the expense of black people, right? You have to be clear that you're talking about black people, and that's not a problem. You just have to say it and say it over and again so that people know and that they understand. I use data to show people that unless you're specific, you get these hyper dilutive outcomes that was never your intention in the first place. I don't think people mean to do this stuff, but again, I'm not fixated on intention. I'm much more focused on outcome. I'm not a mind reader, right? I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know what your intention is, but I do know what the outcomes are that happen. I know what the outcomes need to be, and I can see the delta in that. And I'm just very focused on that piece. So I need your solutions to be specific. I need our language to be specific. Stop underwriting this stuff, right? It is crazy to me when I'm in the room and I ask the question, and I've shared, $100 million being allocated because of George Floyd, right? And I say, how is this getting to black enterprise? Nobody got an answer for me. It's crime. Right? They didn't mean it. They're like, well, it's going to go to minorities, and they do this. And I'm like, that's two levels of issues I have with that. Number one, but how does it get to black enterprise? Right. They don't know. They can't respond. Right? Not bad people. They didn't have a system that's generated to drive those outcomes. Right? So it's going to go to minority stuff, and we know there's some black people in that general direction. Right? And I'm like, yeah, but this is a reaction to anti-black vitriolic public execution. But it's going to lots of other people who are receiving it and thinking they're receiving it because of them. Right? And anti-blackness is something that's across the electorate. We have it. These other people who are in these minority groups have it, right? As well. And it becomes problematic because what people will remember is I did something to elevate black folks. They will not see the data that says it didn't go to black folks. And then when you don't see the outcomes, you say, what's wrong with black folks?
You gotta say that again. 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 You gotta say that again because some people might not catch it. Say that again, man.
No, it's just, look, there are people who are receiving resources, right? And they're attributing it to them, right? But the people who are deploying the resources, they intended for black folks. They're not going to know how much actually went to black folks. And when they see or don't see the outcomes that they're looking for from black folks, they're going to say, what's the problem with black folks?
Because we gave you money.
We
gave you a plan.
Doing it, right?
We're going to give you 80 billion. We're going to give you this. We're going to give you that.
We gave you affirmative action. We gave you some more stuff. Like, what's going on? Come on, guys. We got to, we got to make it happen. I'm like, no, let's just be very clear on the data here. Right? I understand your intention, and I believe they're good. I'm not putting any negativity on you, but this is the outcome. And this is not the outcome that we need. So if you're trying to create jobs, if you're trying to create business, if you're trying to transform communities, if you want better educational outcomes, educational outcomes are directly proportional to wealth, but they're not addressing wealth. Health outcomes are directly proportional to wealth, but they're not addressing wealth. Home ownership is directly proportional to wealth. Jobs, but they're not addressing that, right? You got to address jobs, business, and capital at the core of it. And you have to be specific, right?
Wow.
The tide can raise other ships, but it's got to raise this ship.
So we gave you a scholarship, right, to go to a black school, but you're living in poverty. Why aren't you doing well, right? We gave you a small contract to work. Why haven't you hired, hundreds of people?
Yeah.
Wow.
What we have to be prepared to say is, if you come from a community that has persistent poverty, you are 99% less likely to graduate from a four-year institution than a community with resources. That's 1 in 100. You gave some money to an outlier. You have put
Shawn, I'm
nothing
done,
in
man.
place for systematic outcomes, right? It's all in how you see and interpret and what you know. If you want to do, this is how you do. If you're not interested, then fine. Sign your name on the docket and say you have no interest. We can deal with that also, right? But this other stuff of why can't you make it, of ignoring the impact of environment, which we did not create, is absurd. We're all too smart.
Man, every time we talk, Shawn, right? You do this to me, man. Where you cause me to reflect on everyone has to work. Everyone has to go to school. Everyone has a family. Everyone has their religious beliefs. Everyone has spare time. Everyone needs their mental health days. But to hear that in a black plan, 14% of the money that's supposed to go to black people are out of a plan. 14% of 100% is going to black people. That's to want to release or vent their feelings and their frustrations. I'm choosing my words extremely carefully. So I want us to now, before we get into the questions, I want us to turn this ship around to what can we do now? Because President-elect Biden is not in the White House officially yet. There's about 45 to 50 or so folks in this chat who are still on here because they are interested in solutions. I think this is the part of the program where we can now focus on some of the solutions that can be done long-term and short-term so that we do not become the generation that had the information but couldn't leverage our resources or couldn't pool our resources together to take advantage of the information that was given to us. My grandchildren cannot say, well, my grandpa, got his master's degree at school and he did this and he was smart and he did X, Y, and Z and he was in government and politics and he was an entrepreneur. But we still are in the same situation. So I want to open it up to you, Shawn, and for you to give us some solutions that we can apply in our lives, short term and long term, to help turn this ship around, specific to the Biden administration, because as he said, not us, he said, thank you, black people. First time ever in history that a president-elect looked into the camera and said, thank you, black people. It's never been done before. What can we do to turn this around?
I think it's the same thing that we have to do regardless, right? Number one, we have to be informed, right? This doesn't work unless there's massive levels of ignorance. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I just mean absence of information. Because when you have access to it, you think differently, you see differently, you want to act differently.
Right.
So, get the book, get the information, read it yourself. Don't be an island of information. Make sure as many people as possible, family members, associates, people at work, whatever, are aware of it. You know what I mean? If you have influence in districts and schools and whatnot, make sure that our kids are getting, access to it as well. Information is critical. This information in particular. The second thing, practice PhD whenever possible. When possible, where possible, use your best efforts to do business with high quality Black enterprise. We're here on a platform by the Gentleman's Factory, right? That's got hundreds of members and thousands of people participating, of which you have a ton of entrepreneurs, right? You have financial advisors, you got wealth managers, you got people who do real estate, insurance, all kinds of different businesses. We got to do business with each other, and we got to line that up with other folks, right? Particularly if you know that people do a great job in their craft, we have to direct traffic, right, to them so they become oversubscribed, right? And we have to do our best efforts to make sure that they have the liquidity to be able to grow. You can't show up to the Economic Development Conference and not do any business with Black enterprise, right? Only 2% of Black spend is with Black business. Like, people are like, hey, bring me some idea about boycotting somebody. I'm always like, I need you to stop boycotting Black business. That's what I need you to stop doing before you start telling me about somebody else, right? Let's make sure like we're utilizing our own talent to the best that we can. You can't do it 100% of the time. We don't have the business infrastructure, but if you can do it and pass that information around. Two, it's an economic framework that you can apply everywhere that you have your frame of influence. If you have influence at your universities, make sure they're aware of PhD. They are gigantic economic engines that are often located in underdeveloped Black communities or other types of communities. They have massive supply chain, right? Yes, we need a better representation of students there in the student body. And yes, we need a better representation of professors there in front of the classroom. But behind every professor is 10 to 15 people that makes that university go around. What's up with that's the bulk of the spend. What's up with the participation rate there? What's happening with the supply chain? What's happening with how they're allocating their endowment to fund managers? We have to make sure that our elected officials understand that we're looking for jobs, business, and capital specifically in our community. This PhD concept, these zoning boards and communities where you have to get their approval before you can even do a project, right? If you have influence there, you need to be asking a question. Show me your supply chain. What businesses are you doing business with? That's going to create economic opportunities within this area, Black businesses, in particular. Right? Like when we're talking with people who are running for local office or statewide office, right? If you're looking at, the governor of a state, then you should say you fully expect, you want to be the governor, I want you to be the governor. One of the things I need for you to do is I need a massive reallocation of pension fund assets to Black fund managers, not to minorities. You can go ahead and uplift everybody. That's wonderful. I need it specifically to Black fund managers, right? Can you get that done? Yes, then I'm riding with you all day, every day. Make sure that they know they have billions of dollars in those funds that they allocate to fund managers who can now go buy the companies that can participate in a supply chain. Our infrastructure is too underdeveloped for us to grow our way out of it. You've got to acquire your way out of it, right? You've got to buy into the supply chain to avoid some of these problems, right? Biden has a proposal to deal with an issue of bundling. They wrap these contracts together, make them bigger and bigger, so they're out of the reach of the smaller firm, which is where Black businesses are. Make that irrelevant by buying a larger firm, right? And then you decide who's going to be in your supply chain. Now you don't got to ask permission, right? You can execute it yourself. We got to think outside the box. I'm like, you can't measure the matrix when you're in it. Right? You need to be outside of it, right? So these are the things. It's just a framework. It's the basis by which you value the efficacy of what you are doing today. When the Europeans in America broke away from the monarchs in Europe, They set up a framework. That framework is called the Constitution. And they judge all of their actions based on that framework. Is this constitutional? Right? The framework that you need to use is PhD. Is it driving jobs and business and capital organized in ways that lead to better health and education outcomes in the Black community specifically? Not just is it rising everybody else's ship. That's a wonderful byproduct. The question is it rising this ship, right? And there's many things that you can not control. But what you should do is never subsidize your oppression. You should not make it cheaper.
Ooh.
Right? No one gets to tell you where to spend your money or how to spend it. You choose to do it, right? You can buy a car from a Black dealer. We buy 5 million a year, but there's only 264 Black dealers. We spend almost $100 billion. We could create tens of thousands of jobs, right? By just slight shifts in how we procure, right? Even in our own households. We like flossing. I got a big new house and this, that, and the other. That's wonderful. You just paid $200,000 in broker fees. Did a sister or a brother who's a realtor get paid in that? The answer is often no. Or I'm going to upgrade my kitchen. Black contractor engaged in that? No. You know what I mean? Powerful, meaningful, wonderful jobs never be outsourced, fully in our control. You know what I mean? These are the things that we need to do. Are we capitalizing financial institutions that provide liquidity in our community? The answer most of the time is no. You don't have to shut down all your bank accounts. You can just put some capital, right? In a financial institution that's meaningful. So those are some of the things that you can do from a policy standpoint. You got to start thinking about, how do I incentivize corporations who really don't want to do business with Black enterprise to do it? Can I use tax incentives to do so? How do I make sure there's enough acquisition capital to be able to acquire the businesses that are necessary to build this business infrastructure that's missing? Okay, can I talk to politicians about the role they can play in their pension fund allocation at a federal level, at a state level, at a county level, at a municipal level? These are ideas like we're not thinking about, we're not talking about, right? These things are really, really critical. Can we get these banks that say they want to do so much to help us out to say, okay, can you make sure that you have working capital so when our businesses get the contract that they can actually grow into it because they do the work up front and they get paid later? Or if you really want to help us, can you make sure that we get paid in a week and not 180 days, right? Because we don't have the balance sheet to float that, right? And what does that cost you, right? To be able to do something like that? Can we get away from symbolic things that have no true economic impact or meaning? If there's one thing that you're going to do and you want to make it a Juneteenth a holiday, can you give me the money instead so that you can go hire more Black people in your corporation, train, upskill, promote them? Can you take that money that you're paying to have your whole workforce have a day off so they can go do stuff and put that money into getting more businesses in the supply chain and providing liquidity for them? Can you take that money and put it in a Black bank or credit union or in a CDFI that's providing liquidity? And oh, by the way, that's every year that money is coming, ad infinitum. Can we do that? Can we focus on economics? I mean, I think there's a lot that we can do as individuals, and there's a lot that we can do as a group. And people are interested in hearing what we have to say, and we should tell them what we need, not what they want to hear.
With that being said, brother Rochester, woo, man, standing ovation, man. That was, listen, man, that was deep, man. Very well articulated, and I appreciate you for taking the time to really breaking it down for us. This is investing into educating us, investing your time, because I'm pretty sure some actuary firm would love to scoop you up right now and put $1 billion in your pocket, right? But you've been intentional about educating Black people and writing a book and putting things in that book so people can change their lives. So I definitely want to thank you and your family for supporting you and allowing you to do that. So that to me is huge. And I just wanted to publicly acknowledge you here, and the team here at the Gentleman's Factory. We're definitely, we're privileged to have you share this information. We're privileged to have you come on our platform to talk to our members and our friends and our different participants. So I don't want to take that for granted. I don't want people to understand that this is information that's being shared everywhere, because it is not. So I definitely want to say thank you for that. And I want to definitely go into some questions. Again, this is brought to you by the Gentleman's Factory, where we are building, men every single day. I'm literally at the factory tonight here. It's been a while. So I'm literally at the factory here right now, enjoying the factory air, enjoying the energy. So I just want to say, for folks who are not members of the factory, for men who are not members of the factory, sorry, ladies, please feel free to check out our website, gentleman'sfactory.com, and request an invitation to join the Gentleman's Factory, where you can be a part of information and have access to good brothers like Shawn Rochester on a daily basis like this. So I want to open up. I know I saw a lot of questions from before. I didn't get a chance to come to them. So, a lot of thank yous. Thank you, Shawn. I appreciate your time and sharing knowledge. Thank you for your time and writings. Thank you, Shawn. We're getting a lot of thank yous. But if there are any pressing questions, I'll scroll up to see what I missed. Please feel free to write them in now. But I'm totally. Here we go. Tim Jack has a question. How do we address the floss pandemic in our community?
By floss pandemic, do you mean a conspicuous display of wealth?
Listen, man. Everybody wants to show a little something, man. You understand?
Yeah. So let me. So what I would say is, so there's two aspects of this whole process, right? The black tax is all about, at the end of the day, the strongest possible case that can be made for the commercialization of black business. When I leave the room, business needs to get done, right? And people need to see and understand that. And that's all about job creation. At the end of the day, that's what entrepreneurship does. It creates jobs, right? Meaningful, transformative jobs. But then you've got to be able to convert that earned income into retained income. And that's what my second book, CPR for the Soul, is all about: personal financial management. Because we can make you all the money in the world, but you got to be able to retain it in a society that rewards you for flossing, for looking like you are doing well without actually doing well. And what I did was to write something that applies to everyone, but it's specifically for us, right? And it's based on stewardship, ownership, and legacy, right? And it's really, how do you make sure that you are using your limited resources to their highest and best use? How do you make sure that you are prioritizing ownership? Because you can't lead what you don't own, right? And we have been socialized to mistake possession for ownership, right? See, now you can possess things ahead of ownership and use the word that you own it. You don't actually own that. People's Bank own that, right? There's a difference. You possess it ahead of time. And as I tell people, you can see possession, you cannot see ownership, right? So it's really understanding things. It's understanding the importance of legacy, right? It's understanding what responsibility really means. That when you are taking responsibility, it means that what is required of you is higher than what is desired by you. And we're being socialized to do the reverse, right? You got to have a sense of framework and priority about how you accumulate and allocate your resources. You got to have a mindset that's based on this thing I call soul: stewardship, ownership, and legacy. And I go through all of that, right? And I link it to scriptural references and the like to reinforce our belief system so we know how to navigate it. You're never going to get credit for the cat that's pushing a Civic that you own. But relative to the cat that's pushing a Benz that they don't own, that they're paying $1,500 a month for, and that they're sacrificing their kids' legacy for that, the social mirror is going to reward you. Everyone is going to say, wow. They're going to assume that you're doing well based on that. It's very difficult to walk away from that external reward unless you have an internal focus, right? I could floss heavy if I wanted to, but I'm not interested in spending my kids' or grandkids' legacy, right? I have buckets to fill. You know what I'm saying? And so there's a process that we need to go through to make sure that we're in the best position to be able to handle, manage, and grow our resources, to actually focus on driving resources now and sacrificing spending and other things for later. That's a mind shift that we have to go through, right? And it's very challenging. And understanding that if your resources scale faster than your ability to manage it, you will be separated from those resources. This is a capitalist system. This is how the market works. It works based on asymmetric information, right? The law of the market says you have to be separated from that. So you got to scale your ability to handle it. And that's what happens with our athletes and entertainers and lotto winners and people who come into contact with significant resources beforehand. And when you're living the life of us, which is, I am not likely to get no insurance, inheritance. Our kids are. You know, I would always say that, you know, in our family, when somebody dies, you get a bill, right? Not an inheritance. In that situation, you have to be extremely careful with how you manage your money and your resources. And if you prioritize that, then you'll be focused on cash flow and asset accumulation. The other piece of it is you can have nice things. I don't buy anything whack. I just don't pay retail. Right? I've been to Paris and Milan and all these different places, first class, and I didn't spend a nickel. Right? You got to get beneath how people actually do this stuff and not try to go blow for blow with folks. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you have to have like a soul mindset where you prioritize stewardship, ownership, and legacy, and that will lead you to get to the best deal possible so you can have the things that you enjoy and make you feel good about yourself without sacrificing legacy. Like that is not on the table. Like that will never and can never happen, right? And we teach ourselves that. We can teach that to our kids. You can have great things, just don't pay full price and pocket the difference, right? And put it into this framework, right? Put it into eliminating your debt, put it into investments, particularly tax incentivized investments in retirement vehicles and the like. That's easy, you know, free money and stuff like that. So it's complementary, right? And if you and you'll love the book. If you read The Black Tax, and many of you guys have, you know how I write, how powerful, transformative it is. CPR for the soul is just like that. They go hand in hand.
Wow. Oh. Shawn, yeah, man, I just want to thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for staying on with us. You know, people stayed on for the full ride, and I just want to say this has been powerful. It's been impactful. I was excited about it all week long. I enjoy our conversations, and I enjoy what we're going to be doing together, you know, with the Gems Factory and some of our other ventures. And I just want to say again, if you are on this thread, you're still on with us and you stuck on and you enjoyed this conversation, you want to, and you're not a member of the Gentleman's Factory, you definitely want to join as ASAP. I'll type in the website now. You know, you want to request an invitation. Be a part of this. Black men, we grow in isolation. We don't grow in community, and we're striving to change that. All this information that Shawn has acquired, and he fought, and he did his research, and he is sharing that here through the Gentleman's Factory Network. So I would be remiss if I didn't leave here by offering everyone the same way I would offer people to accept Christ. I'm offering you to come and join and be a part of the Gentleman's Factory, because this is where we are living and learning. And I just got a text message from a brother that said he has a speaking opportunity for Brother Rochester. So definitely I am his manager. So please, yes, Reach out to me. Reach out to me. Y'all got my number. Y'all got my contact. Y'all got my information. Reach out to me, and I'll get y'all brother Rochester. We'll get him booked. Let's book him out for the rest of the year. Let's make this happen. We got to share this information. I'm tired of the same old graduation speeches, and I'm gonna be very serious. I'm an entrepreneur, but I work in government and politics. I do speeches, but I'm tired of the same graduation speeches, man. It's about time that we start talking about Black economics, right? We need to start talking about our real issues. I'm so happy Tim mentioned flossing because we're very good at that. We've excelled, right? We got our PhD in flossing. We're good. The chains, the big houses, fancy cars, we're good. We got it covered, right? But it's time for us to have stewardship and legacy. So I'm very excited. Again, yes, Bishop Stubbs. The doors of the factory are open, so all are welcome. Go on the website and definitely request an invitation. Once again, just want to let everybody know that this programming has been brought to you by the Gentleman's Factory. Just want to give a shout out to our CEO, Jeff Lindor, who's doing some amazing work to grow our movement and our community. And just wanted to say thank you, Jeff, for giving us this platform and having the vision to create this platform. We want to say thank you to David Watkins, who is our community manager and our operator, who's ensuring that everything was in place and that everything was where it needed to be. So want to thank you, David, and we want to thank our new team member, Brother Allen, for coming on board and making sure that our ship is going to be here for the next 20, 30, 50 years. So just want to say, again, you are watching a programming brought to you by the Gentleman's Factory. Thank you one last time, Brother Shawn Rochester, my brother, the brother that showed me the light. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your family. And one last time, just want to say, check out his book, download it. I'm pleased to see in the chat that people said, buy 10 copies and give it away for as Christmas gifts. I think that's a phenomenal idea, and I think I'm going to do that as well. I'm going to purchase a few copies and give them to my mentees so that they can read it, so that we could be on the same mindset. And also CPR for the Soul. We do have the ebook, correct, Shawn?
Yep.
We have the ebook online as well. We have the ebook online, so definitely for those who don't want to carry the paperback. I like having the paper book. Actually, one of my mentees has one of my copy. I want it back, by the way. So I got, but I got CPR on online. So I'm excited. I'm riled up, and I'm ready to go. So I look forward to reaching out to my friends in the Biden administration and letting them know that we've learned a lot tonight, and that we want to definitely make a difference. And maybe some of them don't know, right? Like, I want to be very clear that we love our folks at the Biden administration. We love them. I have a lot of friends that are in the Biden administration that are doing amazing things, but maybe they just haven't gotten this information, and maybe they're not looking at it from this framework. So I definitely want to reach out to my friends at the Biden administration, and some folks who are here tonight, you should do the same. Reach out to folks in the Biden administration. Let them know that there's a brother named Brother Shawn Rochester who can really help them turn this around for Black America. And let them know there's Brother Pierre as well, and he's Brother Rochester's manager. So let them know that we're here, and we're excited, and we really want to make a difference. And that's what this is all about. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Is CPR for the Soul and Audible as well? The answer is yes, right?
That is, yeah, no, that's under production right now. That should be available probably first week of December. That's under production right now.
Okay.
So let me just say real quick, I just wanted to, thank you and Jeff, right, and David, for just being so quick and responsive. You know what I mean? We talked about this. It's really important that we don't do what we normally do, which is kind of celebrate this phenomenal victory, and then don't really show up en masse again until the next 4 years. Right. And then it's too late to ask for what you want. And then we are debating each other on whether or not you should get something for your vote and all this kind of nonsense. It's like you have a person who we were integral to making sure was there. They recognize it. Let's make sure you maximize the opportunity, right? There is a risk here that these guys will see that, you know, a large portion of white men pretty much abandon Trump, right? And they may
Yep.
decide they want to go capture those guys, right? This whole fool's gold type thing. And if they go chase those guys too heavy, then you can't advance, right, a Black agenda, because those folks aren't generally interested in it and they haven't been educated on the importance of it. You know what I mean? So you got to be on folks to let them know, listen, this is what is important, right? We need the specificity. You can figure out how you're going to do that, but we need that. We're not seeing it in these plans. And what history says and the data says is that we're going to see massive dilution where other people benefit, but we hold the association and the blame. I don't think these folks are up to nefarious deeds in any way, shape, or form, but we got to make sure that they know and that they understand. I want to thank everybody else for staying on the Zoom call and engaging in the conversation and the dialogue. You know what I mean? I want you guys to be like, you know, PhD advocates and disciples. You can affect change in powerful ways in your community. Like, this really does happen. Like, people change their nonprofit, they change their churches. Like, people reach out to me from all over the world, large corporations and small, and they're implementing. I know people now that are working on implementing PhD in multi-billion-dollar organizations. I don't know them, right? I know them now, but I didn't know them. They interface with the book and the information. They watch the talks online. They were like, now I see, I can't unsee, I got to do something. And they have 1,000 times more ability to affect change than we typically do on average, right? We got to propagate this so that we create a more healthy, you know, environment, you know, for us. Certainly join, you know, the Gentleman's Factory. The programming is really high quality. Like, I'm typically quiet on a point. I don't try to upsell stuff that's not worthy of it. You know what I'm saying? The quality is actually exceptional. You know what I mean? And we're far more effective as a group and as an organization than we are as individuals. And in a capitalist society, capital is most powerful in its concentrated form. There's lots of brain power here. There's lots of entrepreneurs. The people who are related, that are connected to opportunities and to resources. Utilize that, man, right? And we together can affect, you know, massive change, right? So, and then don't be an island of information. You know, thank you for buying the book. Please propagate and share with as many people as possible.
Again, Shawn, thank you again, man. Thank you, everybody, for staying on. This was brought to you again by the Gentleman's Factory. Once again, join us. A request for an invitation for an interview. We look forward to having you. Thank you again. Thank you, Shawn. Everyone, have a phenomenal night. Enjoy your night. Stay safe. Once again, thank you for joining the Gentleman's Factory. God bless.
God bless, guys.